Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the rays of the setting sun poured through the glass windows of the kitchen and onto the dining table, coloring everything a warm golden color. Ursula sits at the dining room table, fiddling with her cell phone, occasionally looking up at her mother, Zelda, who was busy in the kitchen. Zelda was absorbed in preparing dinner, her movements skillful and graceful, but with an imperceptible hint of absent-mindedness on her face. Quentin, Ursula's father, my husband, just walked in from the garage with a bottle of red wine in his hand. Today we celebrate, Quentin said with a smile. Ursula's been accepted to her dream college and our little princess is all grown up. Quentin opened the wine and poured everyone a glass. To our Ursula, he said, raising his glass. Thanks, Mom and Dad, Ursula said with a youthful smile on her face. I love you guys. We love you too, baby. Zelda's tone was soft, but her eyes drifted a little, as if she was hiding something. I look at Zelda. She's a bit of an anomaly today. She always wanders off during dinner. The rest of the dinner time was supposed to be cozy and pleasant. Ursula is about to leave home for college, and this is our last summer together as a family. However, Zelda's absent-mindedness puts a hint of unease into this cozy atmosphere. My wife, Zelda. We've been married for 19 years. 19 years is enough time for the passion of love to fade and transform into the blandness of affection. But Zelda and I are different. The love between us is like aged wine. The longer it lasts, the mellower it gets. We met on the college campus, when she was the brightest star on campus, beautiful, intelligent, and energetic. I was just an ordinary student, but I touched her heart with my sincerity and persistence. After graduation, we entered into a marriage as a matter of course and soon had Ursula. Ursula's birth has added endless joy to our lives. We have grown up with her and seen her grow from a babbling baby to the young woman she is today. Our life, calm and happy, is like a beautiful idol. This idol, however, begins to strike a discordant note when Ursula goes to college. Zelda began to frequently participate in various activities, yoga, painting, flower arrangement. Her life suddenly became colorful, while I, gradually excluded from her world. At first, I didn't care. I thought it was just her way of emptying the void Ursula felt after leaving home. But, gradually, I realized that things were not that simple. Zelda began to receive frequent and mysterious phone calls and text messages, and each time she received them, she would avoid Ursula and me and hide out on the balcony or in her bedroom. Her cell phone, too, had begun to have complex passwords, whereas before, her cell phone had been completely unguarded to me. Even more disturbing to me was the subtle change in Zelda's attitude toward me. She no longer shushes me or offers to share her life with me like she used to. We communicated less and less, and even when we were together, we were often speechless relative to each other. I tried to communicate with her, but she always passes it off with various excuses. This perverse condition continued for some time, and my heart was filled with doubt and uneasiness, but I never found conclusive evidence. I began to watch Zelda's every move, trying to pick up some clues. One day Zelda went to a friend's birthday party and came home late. When she entered, I smelled a faint perfume on her that wasn't her usual perfume. Doubts deepened in my mind. Where were you today? Why are you so late? I asked tentatively. Oh, I went to Yvette's birthday party and it was quite crowded, so I was late getting back, Zelda replied, sounding slightly flustered. Yeah? What kind of party? I can smell your perfume on you. You seem to have changed it? Quentin asked, pretending not to mean it. Oh yeah? It's probably Yvette's perfume. She's wearing a new one today. Maybe I accidentally rubbed it in, Zelda replied nervously, her eyes a little averted. Well, get some early rest, Quentin said. Though he was filled with doubt, he knew that now was not the time for a showdown. Over the next few days, Quentin kept Zelda under covert observation. He notices that Zelda often dresses up before going out and always comes back late. Quentin's mind is growing restless, and he feels he can't go on like this. He has to get to the bottom of things. One weekend afternoon, Zelda said she was going to the grocery store and headed out. Quentin sees this as an opportunity to check out Zelda's wallet while he's at it. So Quentin snuck into the bedroom and opened Zelda's purse. In the compartment of his wallet, Quentin finds a photograph, one that breaks his heart. The photo shows Zelda snuggled in the arms of a strange man, smiling so brightly and happily. The man, Quentin had never met, but it was clear from the photos that he and Zelda were very close. Quentin looked at the picture and felt like his heart was being ripped out of his chest. Quentin held the picture, and his hands kept shaking. He couldn't believe that his wife, whom he had loved for so many years, would betray him. He didn't know what he should do. Should he question Zelda directly, or should he continue to investigate in secret? Just as Quentin hesitates, Zelda returns. She saw Quentin holding the picture and her face turned pale. "Who is this?" Quentin asked coldly, anger and disappointment in his voice. He's Xavier," Zelda spoke with a hint of trembling and unease in her voice. "He's my ex-fiancé." "Ex-fiancé? How come I've never heard you mention that before?" Quentin's heart hurt like a pinprick. We hadn't spoken in a long time, and he just recently returned home, so we just got back in touch," Zelda explained, her eyes fluttering, not daring to look Quentin in the eye. "Just a connection, Zelda. Do you expect me to believe that? This picture says it all." Quentin's voice rose an octave, and he couldn't contain himself any longer. "Quentin, let me explain. He and I are just normal friends. We haven't done anything to wrong you." Zelda tried to argue, but her voice sounded so feeble. "Common friends? Zelda, do you take me for a fool? Would a common friend take a picture this intimately?" Quentin questioned. Zelda fell silent, knowing that no amount of explanation on her part would convince Quentin. In that moment, Quentin's trust in Zelda crumbled. He decided that he had to find out what was going on between Zelda and Xavier. Over the next few days, Quentin began tracking Zelda. He found out that Zelda often saw Xavier, and that they ate together, went to the movies, and shopped together, like a couple in love. Finally, one day, Quentin saw Zelda and Xavier go into a hotel together. Quentin waited outside the hotel until the next morning to see Zelda and Xavier emerge from the hotel. Quentin couldn't take it anymore. He rushed forward and stopped Zelda and Xavier. "Zelda, how long are you going to lie to me?" Quentin snarled. Zelda sees Quentin and turns pale with fear. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Who are you? What is your relationship with Zelda?" Quentin questioned, turning to Xavier. "My name is Xavier, and I'm Zelda's boyfriend," Xavier said, looking at Quentin. "Boyfriend? Do you realize she's married?" Quentin glared angrily at Xavier. "I know, but I love her," Xavier replied. "You love her? And have you ever thought about my feelings? Did you ever think about Ursula's feelings?" Quentin's voice trembled, his heart dripping blood. "I'm sorry, but I can't control my feelings," Xavier said. Quentin looked at Zelda, who had her head down, afraid to look him in the eye. "Zelda, tell me, is it all true?" Quentin asked, a hint of desperation in his voice. Zelda looks up at Quentin and tears come to her eyes. "I'm sorry, Quentin. I'm in love with Xavier." Zelda's words were like a sharp knife that pierced Quentin's heart. He felt like his world, at this moment, completely collapsed. Zelda's confession comes as a bolt from the blue, shattering all of Quentin's beautiful illusions about marriage and love. 19 years of togetherness, the once sweet vows, all turned into sharp shards at this moment, piercing his heart deeply. He stood blankly, as if abandoned by the entire world, his mind blank. "Quentin, I'm sorry. I know it hurts, but I really can't help myself." Zelda sobs and tries to grab Quentin's arm, only to have him shrug it off mercilessly. "Can't control it? Is that why you betrayed me?" Quentin's voice was hoarse, each word as if squeezed from the back of his throat with endless pain and anger. 19 years of our marriage, of raising Ursula together, is that so worthless to you? "No, Quentin. I love you, and I never wanted to leave you or this family." Zelda burst into tears. I just don't know what to do." "Don't know what to do? Don't you know how to turn him down? Don't you know that being married means you should keep your distance from other men?" Quentin pressed on, his eyes filled with disappointment and pain. Xavier stood aside, his face grim as he tried to interject. "Quentin, I know this has hurt you a lot, but Zelda and I truly love each other. And we? Shut up. Quentin interrupted Xavier in a harsh voice. You have no business talking here. You destroyed my family. You're a shameless third party. You calm down, Quentin, Xavier forced his anger. I know you're agitated right now, but please be rational and we can sit down and talk. Talk? What's there to talk about? About how you seduce other people's wives. About how you're shamelessly enjoying someone else's family. Quentin was on the verge of an emotional breakdown. Zelda, I'm going to ask you for the last time. Have you been thinking about being with him for a long time? Zelda wiped the tears from her eyes and choked. Quentin, I know I'm sorry, but I really can't let go of Xavier. He gave me a passion and romance that I haven't felt in a long time in you. Felt in you for a long time. Passion? Romance? Quentin smiled bitterly as he felt a chill run down his spine. So, for these vain things, you're okay with betraying our marriage, betraying our daughter? I didn't think about betraying you guys. I just… Zelda's voice was getting lower and lower. Xavier came up with an idea, maybe. Maybe we can. You were able to accept the bad ideas he brought up? Quentin interrupted incredulously. He said I could do both. Spend Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with you and your daughter, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays with him, and all three of us can flex our schedules on weekends as we see fit, Zelda said quickly, as if she was afraid of being interrupted again. Quentin froze. He couldn't believe his ears. What did you say? Quentin, I know this proposal is ridiculous, but I really don't know what to do, Zelda pleaded. I love you, and I love Xavier, and I don't want to lose either of you. Maybe we could try this new relationship model? A new relationship model? All Quentin could think was absurd. Are you crazy, Zelda, that you would want me to accept such a ridiculous arrangement? What do you think I am? A pet that you keep? Something you can share with someone else? Quentin, I know this is hard to accept, but please reconsider, okay? I really don't want to lose you or this family. Zelda looks at Quentin with a pleading gaze. No need to reconsider, Quentin said decisively. There's no way I'm going to take that kind of insult. Zelda, let's get a divorce. Divorce? Zelda's face instantly turned pale. No, Quentin, I don't want a divorce. Don't want a divorce? Then tell me, do we have any other options besides divorce? Quentin asked coldly. You tell me how you're going to stay in touch with someone who destroyed our family and caused me and you and our daughter so much hurt? You tell me how you're going to pretend to live with you and him, as if nothing happened. Zelda's tongue was hanging back, and she knew that Quentin was right. There was no way out of this except divorce. Dad, what are you guys talking about? At that moment, Ursula's voice suddenly rang out. She had somehow arrived at the entrance of the hotel, looking at everything in front of her with a shocked face. Ursula! Quentin saw his daughter and a twinge ran through his heart. He didn't know how to explain it all to her. Dad, Mom, what the hell is going on? Ursula walks over to Quentin and holds his hand so tightly hers is shaking slightly. Ursula, I'm sorry, child. There's been a problem between your father and I, Zelda tried to explain to Ursula, but her voice was too choked up to speak. What's the problem? Mom, you and that man. Ursula pointed at Xavier with confusion and anger in her eyes. Ursula, it's not what you think. Zelda tried to argue. How is that? Mom, tell me, how is that? Ursula's voice raised an octave as she couldn't accept the facts in front of her. Why did you betray Dad? Why did you betray the family? I'm not betraying. I'm just… Zelda's tears welled up again. Ursula, listen to me, Quentin said to his daughter, forcing back the grief in his heart. Your mom, she's in love with someone else, and she wants to divorce me. Divorce? Ursula exclaimed. She couldn't believe her ears. Mom, is this true? Are you really going to divorce Daddy for this man? Zelda was silent, unable to answer her daughter's question. Ursula, don't blame your mom. She was just confused. Quentin tried to give Zelda the benefit of the doubt. A moment of confusion? Dad, you need to stop defending her. Ursula glares at Zelda. How could you do this? How could you hurt Daddy and this family like that? Ursula. Zelda's heart was in her throat as she tried to hug her daughter, but Ursula ducked away. Ursula, I know this is hard for you to accept right now, but please believe that mommy and daddy will always love you. Quentin patted his daughter's shoulder gently. All I know is that mom, she doesn't want us anymore. Ursula ran away in tears. Ursula! Quentin tried to go after her, but Zelda pulled him back. Quentin, don't go away. Just let me explain. Zelda begged. Let go of me. Quentin shook off Zelda's hand. There's nothing left to explain between us. I'll get a lawyer as soon as I can and file for divorce from you. With that, Quentin left without looking back. Zelda stood frozen in place. Her world, in this moment, completely collapsed. She lost her husband, her daughter, and her otherwise happy and fulfilling family. Quentin finds Yul, one of the best-known divorce lawyers in the area, who tells him what he's been through and entrusts him with the divorce. Mr. Quentin, I understand your situation, Yul said seriously. According to the information you provided, your wife Zelda has obvious marital infidelity, which is legally considered as the party at fault. If you can provide enough evidence, we can help you get custody of your daughter, as well as the maximum division of property. Evidence? I have pictures of them together and security footage of them entering and leaving the hotel. Is that enough? Quentin asked. These are direct evidence, which is very helpful. Of course, we need to collect more circumstantial evidence, such as call records, text message records, spending records, and so on, to prove that there was a long-term improper relationship between them. Does your wife work? How are her usual spending habits? Yul inquired in detail. She works part-time at an art training organization and usually spends, and so on. I remembered that she often purchased some luxury goods recently and swiped her credit card with a large amount of money, but she never brought these things home. I asked her at the time. She said it was bought for a friend on her behalf. Quentin suddenly remembered some details. That's right. These spending records are probably evidence of an inappropriate relationship between her and that man. Yul said, I'll investigate these situations as soon as possible. You can also log into her email and see if there are any suspicious email exchanges. In short, we need to collect as much evidence as possible in order to take the initiative in court. With Yul's help, Quentin sets out to gather evidence of Zelda's infidelity. Using the passwords of Zelda's purchasing accounts saved on her computer, he printed out her credit card statements for the last few months and found many suspicious purchases. He also logged into Zelda's email account and found a large number of emails between her and Xavier with extremely ambiguous content. The divorce process is very difficult. Zelda never agrees to the divorce. She keeps apologizing to Quentin and Ursula, hoping to get their forgiveness. Ursula's attitude towards Zelda is very cold, and she cannot forgive her mother for her betrayal. Finally, the court opened the divorce case. In court, Yul's attorney presented all of the evidence that Quentin had gathered to prove that Zelda had engaged in serious marital infidelity. Zelda's lawyers tried to argue, but their defense paled in the face of overwhelming evidence. In the end, the court ordered Quentin and Zelda to divorce, and Ursula was to be raised by Quentin, with Zelda required to pay child support for Ursula and compensate Quentin for emotional distress. Because Zelda was at fault, she was also at a disadvantage in the division of property, receiving only a small portion of the community property. After the divorce, Zelda soon married Xavier. She thought she could finally be with her beloved and start a new life. But little did she realize that this was just the beginning of her nightmare. Zelda and Xavier's married life is like a glamorous bubble show that quickly bursts after a brief period of sweetness. Xavier's romantic and passionate nature fades in the midst of the triviality of his life, and he begins to reveal his true colors: selfishness, willfulness, and lack of responsibility. Zelda, on the other hand, has become sensitive and vulnerable after the pain of her divorce and her guilt over her family, and she longs for more love and security from Xavier, but it is often not what she wants. After marriage, Xavier reveals his true nature. He is no longer as attentive as he was when he courted Zelda, and his sweet words are gradually replaced by impatience. He began to go out more often, stay out late at night, and cared less and less about Zelda. Zelda tries to communicate with him, but he always uses the excuse that he's busy at work. To make matters worse for Zelda, Xavier began having affairs with other women. When Zelda confronts him about the explicit text messages and photos she receives on his cell phone, he downplays them by saying they're just for show and that she shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Playing along? Xavier, what do you take me for? Have you forgotten how you swore you loved me? Zelda questioned bitterly, unable to believe that the man in front of her was the man she had once loved and thrown everything away for. Zelda, can you not be so sensitive? I'm just having a casual conversation with them. It's not like I've done anything to wrong you. Xavier said with a look of impatience. You didn't used to be like this. Why have you become so unreasonable now? I'm unbelievable? Xavier, who the hell has changed? You used to obey me. Now what? Do you have any respect for me at all? Zelda's voice trembled as tears welled up in her eyes. How am I disrespecting you? I feed you. I clothe you. What more do you want? Do you think you're still the same high and mighty Mrs. Quinton? Xavier's tone was full of sarcasm. You asshole. Zelda finally couldn't help herself and lost her voice. As these arguments continue almost daily, Zelda's heart grows cold and she begins to miss her time with Quinton and the cozy, albeit uneventful, home. She asked herself countless times whether she had made the right or wrong choice in the first place. One night, Zelda had another big fight with Xavier. Xavier slammed the door and left Zelda alone at home, crying. She looked through the old pictures with Quinton and Ursula, her heart filled with remorse and pain. Suddenly, the cell phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Zelda hesitated, but answered the phone. Hello, is this Ms. Zelda? A familiar voice came from the other end of the line. Low and magnetic, it was Quinton. Quinton? Zelda asked in surprise, not expecting Quinton to reach out to her. It's me, Zelda. How have you been doing? There was a hint of concern in Quinton's voice. Zelda wanted to say. She didn't know how to answer Quinton's question. Is it good to say yes? Apparently not. What's wrong with that? It's not like she wants Quinton to think less of her. Did you have a quarrel with him? Quinton asked as if he had guessed something. Zelda's tears came to her eyes again. Quinton, I'm so tired. I'm really tired. Zelda, don't cry. Tell me, what happened? Quinton's voice became soft. Under Quinton's gentle questioning, Zelda finally relents and confides in him the pain and grievances she has been feeling for a long time. She tells Quinton that Xavier is a completely different person after the wedding, that he doesn't love her, doesn't care about her, and is even having an affair with another woman. Quinton, did I do something wrong? Shouldn't I have divorced you? Zelda asked, crying. Quinton on the other end of the phone was silent for a moment, then said, Zelda, let's not talk about the past. If you are having a bad time, you can tell me, maybe? I can help you. Help me? How can you help me? Zelda asked, a glimmer of hope rising in her heart. Zelda, do you remember when Xavier suggested that threesome? Quinton said, I remember, but weren't you adamantly against it? Zelda doesn't understand why Quinton suddenly brings this up. I did object at the time because I thought it was insulting. But now, I've changed my mind. Quinton said, we can try that relationship model if you want. What? Quinton, are you telling the truth? Are you really open to that kind of relationship? Zelda couldn't believe her ears. Yes, what I said is true. Quinton said, I know you can't let go of Xavier, and I can't let go of Ursula and I. If that's the case, why don't we try a new way of being together? Maybe that's what's best for us. Quinton. Zelda sobbed as she was touched. Why are you being so nice to me? I've hurt you so much. Why do you have to put up with me like this? Because I still love you, Zelda. Quinton said, even though you betrayed me once, I could never forget you. And Ursula needs you too. She's always missed you. Ursula mentioned her daughter. Zelda's heart felt even more guilty. Zelda, think about it. We can start any time if you want. Quinton said, just as Xavier mentioned, you'll be on our side Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and on his side Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Sunday we'll all be together, for Ursula and for us as a family. Quinton, Zelda's heart was full of contradictions. She didn't know what to choose. You don't have to rush your reply, Zelda. Think about it and call me when you've thought it through. Quinton said and hung up. Quentin's phone call left Zelda in a state of shock. She admitted that she was moved by Quentin's offer. She doesn't want to lose either Xavier or Quentin and Ursula, and wouldn't it be the best of both worlds if she could actually have all three relationships in parallel, as Quentin says? But is this relationship really viable? Zelda was filled with doubt. She remembers the damage she did to Quentin when she was with Xavier, and she's afraid that history will repeat itself and that she'll hurt Quentin again. After days of deliberation, Zelda couldn't resist her heart's desire. She dialed Quentin's number and told him she was willing to try that new relationship model. "Quentin, I've thought about it, and I'm willing to give it a try," Zelda said, a hint of apprehension in her voice. "Are you sure, Zelda? This isn't child's play. Once you start, there's no turning back," Quentin said, his voice sounding calm. "I'm sure. I've thought about it, and it's the best thing to do right now," Zelda said. "Well then, since you've decided, let's do it. When are you moving in?" Quentin asked. I'll do it as soon as I can. I need to talk to Xavier," Zelda said. "Okay, I'll wait for you then," Quentin said and hung up. Quentin hangs up the phone, a sneer playing at the corner of his mouth. He had finally waited for this day, and his plan for revenge could finally begin. He's going to make Zelda and Xavier feel the pain too, and he's going to make them pay for their betrayal in the first place. Zelda finds Xavier and confesses to him about her call with Quentin and her decision. "Xavier, I want to move back in with Quentin and Ursula for a while," Zelda said, her tone calm. "What? You're moving back? Why?" Xavier was stunned. He didn't understand why Zelda had suddenly made this decision. "Because I want Ursula. I want to give her a complete home. And Quentin, he agreed to that proposal you made in the first place. He's willing to try that threesome model of relationship," Zelda said. "Quentin agreed? How is that possible?" Xavier couldn't believe his ears. He had only suggested it so that Zelda could have both him and Quentin. He didn't think Quentin would agree. "It's true," he told me himself. "He said that he still loves me and Ursula, and that he's willing to try this new model of relationship for us," Zelda said. But do you really want to go back? Do you want to leave me?" Xavier asked, his heart filled with dismay. "I don't know, Xavier. I admit that I still love you, but I really don't know how much longer this can go on," Zelda said. "I can't get Quentin out of my mind, and I can't let go of Ursula, and I need time to sort it all out." "So, what are you going to do about the arrangements?" Xavier asked, a hint of loss in his voice. "Quentin said I could be on their side Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, on your side Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and we'd be together on Sunday. Of course, if there are any special circumstances, the three of us can talk about adjusting it again," Zelda said. "Is this really going to work?" Xavier asked, and while he thought the arrangement was ridiculous, deep down he felt a twinge of joy because it meant he wouldn't have to lose Zelda completely. "I don't know, Xavier, but I'm willing to try. I want all three of us to be happy," Zelda said. "Zelda?" Xavier looked at Zelda with mixed feelings. He didn't know what to say but to hold her tightly. So, more than a year after her divorce, Zelda is back with Quentin and Ursula. She thinks it's the beginning of a new life, but she doesn't realize it's just a prelude to Quentin's plan for revenge. Quentin, on the other hand, begins his carefully planned revenge. He's outwardly gentle and submissive to Zelda, but secretly he's slowly torturing her. He begins to frequently bring up in front of Zelda the happy times he had with Ursula and how happy they used to be. He deliberately presents himself as a good father figure to Zelda by taking Ursula out, tutoring Ursula, attending Ursula's parent-teacher conferences, and he even begins to take Ursula on trips while leaving Zelda alone. Whenever Zelda tries to fit in with him and Ursula, Quentin always excludes her for various reasons. He'll say that Ursula prefers to be alone with him, or that Zelda's upbringing doesn't suit Ursula. "Quentin, can I come along to the school function today?" Zelda asked cautiously. "I'm afraid not, Zelda. Ursula says she only wants me to go with her. You know, she prefers to be with me now," Quentin said, a hint of amusement in his tone. "But I'm Ursula's mom too, and I want to be a part of her growth," Zelda said, her heart filled with loss. "I know, Zelda, but Ursula needs fatherly love more than anything else right now, you know?" You've been absent for so long. Now let her have more time with me. Quentin said. I. No, Zelda said, tears welling up in her eyes. These behaviors of Quentin's cause Zelda pain and distress. She begins to realize that Quentin doesn't really seem to have forgiven her, and that the reason he agreed to that ridiculous pattern of relationships was probably just to get back at her. And Quentin's revenge is just beginning. He began to deliberately act affectionately with Zelda in front of Xavier. For example, when Xavier was at home, he would suddenly come home and take Zelda and Ursula out to dinner, leaving Xavier alone. He puts his arm around Zelda's waist in front of Xavier, or kisses Zelda on the cheek, while Xavier can do nothing but watch. Quentin, what are you doing? Why are you doing this when you know Xavier is here? Zelda questioned, angry and ashamed of Quentin's behavior. Why can't I do this, Zelda? You're our Zelda now. It's normal for us to do what we do. Don't forget, you agreed to this in the first place. Quentin said as he walked through his blog. What I agreed to was for the three to live together peacefully, not for you to humiliate Xavier like this. Zelda said. Humiliate him? Zelda, you overestimate him. Why didn't he think he'd be here today when he was destroying our family? Quentin said, sarcasm in his tone. You are unbelievable, Zelda said, shaking with anger. I'm unbelievable? Zelda, you're the one who's really unbelievable, aren't you? When you betrayed me, why didn't you think you'd see this day? Quentin asked rhetorically. Zelda was dumbfounded, knowing that nothing she could say would change Quentin's resentment toward her. Quentin's retaliation is so painful for Zelda that she begins to wonder if she made the right decision. She's caught between Quentin and Xavier, and it's exhausting, both physically and mentally. She wanted to end it all, but she didn't know what to do. Zelda's life is in complete disarray as she is manipulated by Quentin and Xavier like a puppet on strings, running the gauntlet between the two men. She tries to find a balance where all three can coexist peacefully, but reality is like a giant whirlpool that swirls her deeper and deeper into an impossible situation. Quentin's vengeance intensifies as he patiently lays out his traps like a masterful hunter, watching Zelda struggle and agonize as he enjoys the thrill of vengeance, but also feels an inexplicable sense of emptiness. He arranges for Ursula to attend various bonding events with himself, and then takes photos and videos, deliberately showing them to Zelda. He even shoots videos of himself out with Zelda and Ursula's family on some nights when Xavier is home as well, sending them to Zelda so she can play them for Xavier on purpose. Zelda, look, here's a picture of Ursula and I at the amusement park today. She was so happy. Quentin hands his cell phone to Zelda with a gentle smile on his face and a sly glint in his eye. Ursula, just have fun. Zelda smiled reluctantly, but her heart ached like pins and needles. She knew that Quentin was doing this on purpose. He wanted her to feel what it was like to be rejected and isolated. By the way, Zelda, you shouldn't come over tonight. Ursula and I want to watch a movie. You know, she prefers to watch it with me now. Quentin continued, with a hint of undeniable dominance in his tone. But I promised Xavier I'd stay with him. Today, Zelda said, feeling a pang of embarrassment. That's your business, Zelda. You should have known this would happen when you chose this lifestyle in the first place. Quentin's tone turned cold. You can't keep us, father and daughter, waiting for you, can you? No. Zelda lowered her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Xavier recognizes Zelda's pain and regrets his suggestion of a threesome. He finds that he can't bear to share Zelda with another man, much less with Quentin's humiliation of him. He began to miss the old days when he and Zelda were alone together, and the peace of a life without suspicion or quarrels. Zelda, we can't go on like this, Xavier said to Zelda, exhaustion and hopelessness in his tone. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to share you with that asshole Quentin anymore. Xavier, come on, just give me a little more time, okay? I'll take care of it, Zelda said, her mind filled with anxiety. How much longer? Zelda, tell me, how much longer? Look at you now. Are you happy? Do you really think this monstrous relationship can last? Xavier questioned. I don't know, Xavier. I really don't. Zelda shook her head painfully. I don't want to lose you, or Quentin and Ursula, What am I going to do? Zelda, you have to make a choice. You can't go on like this forever. Xavier said, either you come back to me and we start over, or you go back to Quentin once and for all and we part ways. Choose, Xavier. You're making me choose between you and my daughter? Zelda looked at Xavier incredulously, her heart in her throat. Why are you forcing me to do this when you know that Ursula is my life? I'm not forcing you, Zelda. I'm just trying to make you realize that you can't want everything. You have to make trade-offs. Xavier said, I. Zelda choked, unable to speak. Quentin sees Zelda's pain and anguish, and his heart fills with pleasure. He knows that his plan for revenge has succeeded in a big way, and he's going to break Zelda down and make her pay the heaviest price for her betrayal in the first place. However, as time passes, Quentin's heart begins to change. He realizes that his revenge on Zelda, instead of bringing him true happiness, makes him feel even more empty and alone. He began to miss the happy times he used to have with Zelda, the complete home. One night, Quentin was drinking alone when Ursula came by. Dad, what's wrong with you? Why are you drinking alone here? Ursula asked, concern in her eyes. It's okay, Ursula. Daddy's just a little tired. Quentin said, not wanting his daughter to see his vulnerable side. Daddy, are you still mad at Mommy? Ursula asked. Quentin wanted to say, Dad, I know that Mom did wrong things in the past and hurt you and me. But during this time, I can see that she really regrets it, and she really wants to make it up to us. Ursula said, Daddy, can you forgive Mommy? Ursula, you don't understand. Grown-ups are complicated. Quentin said, I don't understand? Dad, I really don't understand. I just don't want to see you in pain like this, and I don't want to see Mom sad like that. I know you still love Mom, so why can't you guys just be good together? Ursula's voice choked. Ursula's words hit Quentin like a hammer. He looked at his daughter with guilt in his heart. He realizes that by taking his revenge, he has not only hurt Zelda, but Ursula as well. Dad, I know it's hard on you, but let bygones be bygones, okay? Let's start over as a family, okay? Ursula continued, her eyes filled with anticipation. Quentin was silent, looking at his daughter and thinking of Zelda with mixed feelings. He began to reflect on what he had done during this time, and he realized that revenge did not bring him true happiness, but instead cost him more. Finally, Quentin made a decision. He finds Zelda and confesses to her his plans for revenge and what's really going on inside him. Zelda, I'm sorry that all this time, I've been getting back at you. Quentin said, his tone filled with remorse. I know your betrayal in the first place hurt me, but I shouldn't have hurt you the way I did. Quentin. Zelda was in tears as she listened to Quentin's words. She didn't think that Quentin would confess it all to her. Zelda, I admit that I still love you and want to be with Ursula and give you a complete home. However, I can't accept that threesome relationship. It would be torture for all three of us. Quentin continued, so, I want you to make a choice. Either come back to me and Ursula completely or… Either what? Zelda asked, her mind filled with apprehension. Either that, or we end this once and for all, and from here on out, bridges go back to bridges, roads go back to roads, you live your life, and Ursula and I live ours. Quentin said. Zelda was silent. She knew that this was her last chance. She had to make a choice. She remembered the pain and struggle she'd been through all this time, Quentin's revenge and Xavier's helplessness. She finally realizes that this monstrous relationship can't last, and she has to make a trade-off. Quentin, I choose you and Ursula, Zelda said, her voice soft but firm. I know I made an unforgivable mistake, but I really want to make amends. I want to make a good life with you and Ursula. Give us each other a chance with each other, okay? Zelda. Quentin looked at Zelda with mixed emotions in his eyes. He didn't think that Zelda would choose him and Ursula. Quentin, I know that you still hate me, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I will prove by my actions that I really do want a life with you and Ursula. Zelda continues, give me a chance, and yourself a chance to make a fresh start, okay? Quentin looked into Zelda's sincere eyes and the ice in his heart began to melt. He remembers the happy times they had, Ursula's desire for a complete family, and the love he has for Zelda deep down. "Okay, Zelda, I promise you will start over," Quentin said, his voice catching a little in his throat. Zelda cried tears of joy when she heard Quentin's answer. She hugged Quentin tightly as if he were a lost treasure. Zelda confesses her decision to Xavier, who, despite his pain, can only accept it reluctantly. He knew that Zelda's heart was always with Quentin and Ursula, and no amount of effort on his part would change that. "Zelda, I wish you well," Xavier said, his tone filled with bitterness and helplessness. "If you need any help in the future, feel free to call on me." "Thank you, Xavier," Zelda said, her heart filled with guilt. "I'm sorry I ended up hurting you by choosing them." "Don't say you're sorry, Zelda. It's your choice and I respect your decision. Just hope that Quentin this time, is truly repentant and cherishes you," Xavier said. "It will. I trust him," Zelda said. Xavier left, with a broken heart, to return to a life of his own. Zelda, on the other hand, has returned to her family once and for all, starting a new life with Quentin and Ursula. Quentin doesn't go back on his word. He puts the past behind him and tries to accept and trust Zelda again. Although both are still a little uncomfortable at first, they are both trying to get used to it and working hard to repair their relationship with each other. Ursula is the happiest of all. She finally has a whole family again. A year later, Quentin and Zelda remarried. The wedding was simple, with only family and a few close friends in attendance. Ursula sends her best wishes as their daughter and witness. Through it all, Quentin and Zelda have come to appreciate each other and their hard-earned family even more. They learn tolerance, they learn to understand, and they learn how to love. Quentin stands on stage and looks at Zelda in her wedding dress with love in his eyes. "Regardless of the past, from this day forward, we will move into the future together." He paused and said solemnly, "I love you, Zelda." "I love you too, Quentin." Zelda's eyes glistened with happy tears. Ursula stood on the stage, looking at her mom and dad with a big smile on her face. Her home, she knew, was finally complete. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.